Hello everyone. Last time we implemented a nicer description for the confirm action button. And today I want to implement working reachable tiles. So if you look at the project so far, you will notice that when we give a move command, the entire map gets highlighted as valid places to go. So I can move basically anywhere. And what I want to do is may have the units have a maximum range that they can move, and I want to give visual feedback on which tiles you can reach and which ones you cannot reach. The advantage we have is we're using Dijkstramaps for the pathfinding, and then those can also be used to highlight reachable tiles. But we'll get there in a minute. So basically what I want to do is in our game scene we highlight, this is a sort of hack, where we highlight every tile pink if there is a current action set. And here I want to do something that returns me a list of tiles that are reachable. So from an action I want to be able to somehow get a list back of reachable tiles, and for that let's create, we will need a new function and we also need a test to validate it. So let's say we have something called reachable tiles for a move action, and that returns tiles within a range of an entity. So we need an entity. Let's see, an example entity, and we need a start position. Let's choose a position, for instance 1, 1, 1. Then we need some an expected result. So, but I'll copy paste these ones in because otherwise it's a bit tedious. So I have a list of all the tiles that I expect are reachable by this entity, and then I can get reachable tiles as a function from our move action that returns a set of reachable tiles. And from an API point of view, what I'm going to do is I'm going to expect that this is a static function, and the reason for this is I want to be able to calculate reachable tiles even if I don't yet have a concrete movement action, because most likely I will be looking at reachable tiles as part of constructing a move action or even before creating a movement action. So that's the reason why I'm not using an instant of move action, but I expect reachable tiles to be a static function of move action. So the API will be something like move action.reachable tiles in our example map. So we take the exact map into consideration, and we do this for a specific entity. Of course, this function doesn't yet exist, but we will add it in a bit. Then we should at least make sure that the result is we get just as many tiles back as the expected tiles. The thing is, I don't know the sequence of the tiles that get sent back by this function, so I can't do a direct comparison with this array. I need to do the comparison by checking that they both one item is also in another one, and then also make sure that they have the same count. That way I know that they have exactly the same contents. They might not be the same as in the terms of the sequence, but I'm interested in the context. So that's why I'm using this this solution. And then we can do for each reachable tile in reachable tiles, we assert that expected reachable tiles contains this reachable tile. This doesn't compile because we don't have this function yet defined. So let's do that. Let's go into our action and let's create a static function that takes a map and an entity and returns an array of vector trees. And for now, let's return an empty array. So now we should be able to build and run the test. Oh, I'm missing a label. Sorry. So this one also has a 4. So now we can build. So the test fails because we have the hard-coded value. Let's make sure that we can now make the test pass. So to do that we need a Dijkstramap. And we start at the entity's position. And then we return Dijkstra. But we're going to filter based on the following. We take all the values that are 3 or less. Because if you remember, the Dijkstramap contains the cost of towards the target from any other tile. Finding the reachable tiles is determining your maximum range. That's basically the maximum cost that you can afford to pay for the movement. And all the tiles that have, in this case, 3 or less cost, we call reachable. And 3 here is a hard-coded value, and I'll make a quick note of this, that we have a hard-coded maximum range value. So 3 here is the maximum range. In the end, we can make this much more dynamic. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is enough to show the basic concept. And then finally, we need to convert these 2D coordinates to 3D coordinates. And let's run the test again. And now the test passes. So we now have a function that returns reachable tiles. Now if I go to our game scene, I can close this one for a bit. So if I go into my game scene, I can start try and using this one. So I want to get rid of this line and do this a bit different. Else if I have a current action and selected entity, and then we need to check for our current action. We need to type that we can call reachable tiles. This one doesn't yet work, but we'll fix it in a bit for our map and selected entity. And then we can color them if these the tile we currently have. So we need to contains our position. If our position is in the reachable tiles of the current action for the selected entity and the map, then we color them. This doesn't work because we created the reachable tiles function as a part of the concrete type move action, we need to make this a part of the action protocol, just like this one. And we now need to make sure that other types also conform to this one. What I will do so is by creating a default implementation of reachable tiles. And this one will just return the entire map. So map tiles, these map, and we convert these to 3D. So now dummy action also conforms to the protocol. And now we should be able to build. So we now, if I click move, we see how far the knight can move. But I can still click somewhere else and issue a move command somewhere else. And that's of course not the intended behavior. And the reason is that our make function creates a path regardless of whether it's in range or not. So what I want to make sure is that if you click on a tile outside of the range, that the make function doesn't return a concrete action, but returns nil instead. So let's create a test for that. So make returns nil when a coordinate that is not in reachable tiles is passed in. So again, we need an entity. I think we should be able to reuse this one. Then we have a maybe a move action. That's our move action dot make in our map for entity targeting. Let's choose a position that's outside of range. For instance, 4, 4, 1, and then we assert nil on the maybe move action, and this should be the example map. So this should now at least build and have the test should be able to run but fail. So we need to make sure that nil is returned if you're outside the movable or the reachable tiles. And we can do that by taking our make function, that one is here, and then checking, oh no, and then it was gone. Okay, adding a guard statement that if I call reachable tiles here for the map that was passed in and the entity that was passed in should contain the function that and the position that was passed in as target. Otherwise, we return nil. Let's run the test again. And now the test passes. So let's see how that looks in the game itself. So let's take the rogue for instance. I move. When I click outside, I don't get a movement action, but if I click within range, then I can indeed execute a movement. And from here on I can move somewhere else. And that applies to this one, for instance, as well. So that's interesting. I want to do one final thing in our entity view. Where is it? Let's get rid of the canvas. We have this attack here. Let's create let's use this one to see what happens if you have a dummy action with a different reachable tiles, for instance dummy action. And then we call viewModel.redraw. Let's run. So now movement is still the same, but if I choose attack, for instance, again all the tiles get highlighted because the dummy action has an indefinite range. So that one still works. That's it for this time. Next time, I did mention hint a bit at it already in Action Reachable Tiles that we have a hard-coded maximum range value. I want to add range differentiation to units, and I do notice that we're spending a lot of time working on movement, but in this type of game, movement and positioning are such major parts of the gameplay that I don't think it's reasonable to not cover this correctly. I think there are a couple of things that we simply need to implement when it comes to movement, and one of them is changes in range, so that some types of units can move further than other ones. For instance, the knights might not be able to move as far due to their heavy armor than, for instance, a rogue. But I also want to look at the maximum height difference that a unit can cover. So for instance, I'm not sure if our default map has the correct setup, but for instance, some units might not be able to cover the height difference going directly from here to there. Some might just need to sort of take the long way around because they cannot go over one or two height differences, while for example a flying unit might be able to do so. So that becomes more flexible. So we're talking both about how far a unit can go in terms of range, but also what are valid places for them. So that is something I want to do, and also I want to definitely make sure that a position cannot be occupied by two units. So every unit should be able to only be able to go somewhere where there are no other units. And we'll have to see if you also want to implement basically walking around another unit, or whether you can walk through others. So if you do the last part, you have for instance, a unit could escape if it's surrounded. If you don't want that, then you need to make sure that units basically can block other units. So we have at least 2 more episodes on movement coming up. Yeah, on one hand I'm sort of sorry about that, on the other hand that's just also what this genre is all about. For now, thanks for watching and have a good day.